So, hey, this is Charlotte, part of the Baker team. And one of the things I wanted to share in this social distancing and self-quarantining that I've noticed that I had to really take a look at. So, I had to look at as far as what we're eating. This is kind of interesting. I never really looked at it this closely. But since we are all three of us are home every day, you have to eat, right? And so I really had to take an account of how much we're eating a day and how much that equates to in a week. So that as I begin to go to the store, when I do, because we have to be purposeful when we're going to the store, right? Because we don't want to have to go out every day, which I wasn't doing anyway. But now we have to pay attention. So it was just interesting to me that I started thinking, okay, so if we eat a minimum of 2 meals a day, that's pretty much where we are. For 3 people, that's 6 meals in a day. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then you add that up in, 5 days, that's 30 meals. And I'm thinking, wow. And then I started thinking, what about people who have a multiplicity of children? Oh my goodness. I say hats off, kudos. I'm giving you a hand clap because that is a huge undertaking. I mean, to think about, it's like a little small army. Say if you have 5 or 6 kids, even just 5 kids, 2 meals a day, that's 10 meals a day. So you're talking about maybe typically breakfast and then in the middle between lunch and dinner, if you would, that could be the second meal. And some people are literally doing 3 meals a day, probably. It depends, especially if you have smaller children, I would think. But I just wanted to talk about that really briefly because it's like, wow, the things we have to do in this particular climate is you have to think about things differently. And I was talking to a friend about that as far as we know there's going to be some level of normalcy eventually, or as she says, the new normal. I think that's something we need to think about even now, about what that's going to look like, because I think this is something we need to think about as far as when you're talking about, in particular, grocery shopping. Shopping, we can't even talk about that yet because, everything is pretty much closed. But when you're talking about grocery shopping, what do we actually need versus what do we want? Because we've seen that in the climate where people are literally fighting over things like toilet paper. I've seen so much stuff, I can't even look at it anymore because I try to limit it. But the little stuff I've been looking at, it's like, wow, is this really a part of humanity? And I talked about this in one of the other podcasts about how we can't lose our humanity. Even in the middle of everything that's going on, where people are having a lot of uncertainty, some people literally, unfortunately have lost their lives, they're losing their jobs. It's just so much stuff that's going on. Yes, that's horrific. I'm not diminishing any of that, but we still can't lose our humanity. We still have to be, as I said before, our brother's keeper and be concerned about other people. And let's not fight over things that maybe in 6 months or a year won't even matter, right? So think about that, about how we can expand our humanity in the few times that we should be going out, which is only for essentials, as we've been hearing that over and over and over, whether it's store or whether it's to get gas, that we're, being wise in doing that. But as we really prepare for our families, whether it's the husband or the wife that cooks, because in our house, my husband, he can't cook. He has his moments. So I'm not just saying, of course, it's a woman's thing, but primarily, usually, a lot of women do cook. I mean, there are some women I've met that said, okay, I just don't cook at all. And that's fine too. If whoever's cooking, long as y'all eating, right? But the point is, somebody's going to have to go to the store at some point and get the basic necessities, whether it's, bread or some type of meat. And, we've already said, if it's need be, some days we can do a meatless. We don't have a problem with that. It's about really in this new climate, really adjusting ourselves. Like I said, thinking about what you need for the week, how many meals a day, and then also adjusting what we eat. That may also be a part of it, because some of the things I think as Americans, we have eaten a lot of things. When you look at all the fast foods and things around, they're not necessarily the healthiest, depending on what you're getting. And so now we're being forced, unless you're going out every day and going to a fast food restaurant, you have to cook. So at home, you have more control over, what goes into a meal, what's in a meal, how much salt, how much this, how much that. And so I think this is also a good time if we can spin it and look at it that way, that we're learning how to be sufficient in our own home. We're learning how to provide our families with more choices if we're buying better choices, like when we go to the store. We're learning how to be together, come together, talk together, play together, switch it up, make things a little bit different within the confines of what we have, because even now in our area, it's now down to the point where they really stress to stay in even more, in our particular county where we live. And so we've pretty much been in for the 2 weeks. So it's like, okay, now we got to hunker down another 2 weeks unless some miraculous thing happens. But all I'm saying is, think about being purposeful before you go out to the grocery store about, again, how, because this idea came to me. I was thinking, wow. And then I started seeing it. So I know it's real, it's reality. And I think that'll help us to stay calmer as we know what we need. We can go in and get out and do what we need to do, and then come back home and again, find creative ways to spend time with the family. Okay. So I just hope that little tidbit helps someone out. That yes, it's a good thing to think about what you eat in a day. It's a good thing to think about how many meals you're going to need for at least the next 5 to 7 days. I think that'll be helpful for us, those who do the shopping, right? All right. That's all I wanted to talk about. So remember to check out our website, enrichmymarriage.com, and also listen to any of our other podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube, Marriage Enrichment The Bakers, to see any other actual videos that we've posted. And we'll be looking forward. I'll be looking forward. I'm saying we, because we always want to be looking forward to talking to you again soon. Okay? Bye-bye.